Dear students, today we are going to start new chapter, that is basic concept of OOP. Last year we have studied about C++. In that C++ we have studied about basic things. Basic things means what? What are the characteristics of C++? What are the data types we are using the C++? What are the functions we are using? What are the structures we are using? Which are the arrays we are using? What are the types of functions? That all those things we have discussed in first PUC. Okay. Also, you have a last year lab programs that are based on C++ only. Already written the lab programs in C++ only, but that lab programs are not purely used C++, because in that chapter we written the program in C++, but concept we have used the C programming language concept. We have used the C programming concept. Means what? C programming language is a procedure oriented programming language. C programming language is a procedure oriented programming language, and C++ is a object oriented programming language, that is the OOP, in short OOP, object oriented programming language. Last year we studied about C++. We also written some lab programs, but that all lab programs are based on procedure oriented programming language. Last year programs are not object oriented programming languages. So actually this year we are going to study about OOP concept. Last year we did not study about OOP concept. Last year studied about POP, procedure oriented programming language. This year we are going to study about object oriented programming language. So 6th chapter onwards our actual C++ programs will be started. Actually our C++ syllabus start from 6th chapter onwards only. See, 5th chapter is there, overview of C++, means last year whatever we studied, that things we are going to discuss in chapter number 5th, and that chapter number 5th is not asking in the annual examination. Means from chapter number 5th any questions will not ask in annual examination. That is only for our purpose only, for our reference purpose only. 5th chapter is only for our reference purpose only. From that chapter no one question will ask in the annual examination. That is only for the purpose of reference. Okay. So first chapter is a typical computation of computer system. It is a purely theory based chapter about the computers, how computers are made up of, what are the devices you are using, what are the use of that devices. That all those things discussed in chapter number 1. Chapter number 2 is a Boolean algebra. In that chapter number 2 we are going to discuss theorems and some laws. We are going to discuss theorems and laws. For that we need a blackboard. That's why I am not going to take that chapter. I will take it in college only. Then chapter number 3 is the logic gate. Already I have discussed about that one. Then chapter number 4 is the data structure. In data structure also we are having the algorithms. For algorithms we need to use the blackboard. Last year you have written the algorithms. Okay, last year you written the algorithms. Already you studied some algorithms also. Okay, whatever traces the algorithms last year, similarly this year also you are having the some algorithms in chapter number 4, that is data structure. So for that purpose also we have to use a blackboard. So that's why that 4 chapters also I will take it in college only. Okay, then chapter number 5 is the overview of C++. Means last year whatever you have studied, it may be arrays, it may be functions, it may be data types, it may be variables, that all those things again this year they are given for your reference purposes only, but that any point will not ask in the annual examination. Means whatever syllabus contents are there in chapter number 5, that is only for our reference purposes, that will not ask in the annual examination. Okay, so now chapter number 6th onwards our actual C++ programming syllabus will be get started. So 6th chapter onwards only we are having the C++ syllabus. See, our actual CS subject is combination of 3 languages, 3 programming languages. One is the C++, another is the HTML, one more is the SQL, that is database. Okay, so first our C++ start from chapter number 6 to chapter number 12. 6 to 12. This all chapters are based on C++. Chapter number 13 and 14 are based on database concept, and after that 15 is a networking concept, 16 is the internet, and 17 is the HTML. Okay, I will discuss that chapters later, but keep in your mind chapter number 6 onwards we are having the C++ syllabus. So for C, what is basic concept of OOP? Okay, so OOP is the object oriented programming language. In this, using OOP concept, we can reduce our program, we can give the security, we can give the protections, that all those things covered using this OOP concept. So we will discuss one by one. Before that, see, there is a difference between procedure programming language and object oriented programming language. PO means procedure oriented programming language, and OOP means object oriented programming language. What is difference is there in both? See, in procedure oriented programming language, large programs are divided into smaller programs known as the functions. Whatever large programs are, that if you will divide, that becomes a functions. Last year I said functions. Here in object oriented programming language, the programs are divided into objects. Here we are using the objects. In POP we are using the functions. See carefully, this point is asked in this year for 5 marks. Explain the difference between procedural programming language and object oriented programming. This year only, in 2020 only, the question will be asked for 5 marks. Now one more thing I will tell now only. This 6th chapter will be asked for 7 marks in annual examination. One question is for 2 marks, one more question for 5 marks. One question is for 2 marks, one more question is for 5 marks. Total 7 marks chapter is there. This is. Then second point, data is not hidden and can be accessed by external functions. In C programming language, the data is not hidden. Because of that, the external members can be accessed by this whatever data is there. Means external functions can access this one. But in C++, in object oriented concept, data is hidden and cannot be accessed by external functions. So whatever the data is there, that will be hidden. So because of that, the external functions can't be accessed this data. Only internal functions can use it, but external members can't be accessed the data in OOP concept. But in procedural concept, the external functions can also access it because the data is not hidden. Then see, third point, follow top-down approach in a program. While writing the program, procedural programming language follow the top-to-down approach. It follows the top-to-down approach. But in C++ means in OOP concept, object-oriented programming concept follows the bottom-up approach in programming design. It will use the bottom-to-up approach. In procedure programming, top to bottom. In object-oriented, bottom to up. Then see fourth point. Data may communicate with each other through functions. In procedure-oriented, the data is communication happens using the functions only. Okay. In OOP concept, the object may communicate with each other through functions. In OOP concept, object, we are using the object. With the help of object only, we can communicate all the functions. Then fifth point, emphasize is an procedure in procedure oriented, and in object oriented, emphasis is on the data rather. Okay, so this is what difference between procedural programming and object oriented programming. This question already asked in this year, and this is on small chapters there. I told you one question asked for 2 marks, another question asked for 5 marks. For 5 marks, it is having only hardly 4 to 5 questions. It is having hardly 4 to 5 questions. Okay, this small chapter is there. Within 1 or 2 days, it will be get finished. Okay, so first question is completed. Out of 5 long questions, 1 question is completed. What is the difference between procedural programming language and object-oriented programming language? This first point is completed. Now see next point in this chapter, that is basic concept of object-oriented programming language. Okay, the following are the major characteristics of object-oriented programming language. They are, I will explain one by one. There's so many characteristics are there. I will explain one by one which are the characteristics of object-oriented programming language. In this chapter, mainly 5 points are there. First is the difference between procedure and object. Second question is basic concept of object-oriented programming language, means characteristics of object-oriented programming language. Third is the advantage of OOP. And fourth is the disadvantage of OOP, and fifth is the applications of OOP. Only 5 points are there in this chapter. First, see what are the major characteristics of object-oriented programming language. So first is object, then class, then data abstraction. See, object and class, we are having the separate chapter. This is chapter number 6. In chapter number 7 is the object and classes. I will also again discuss in detail in chapter number 7 what is object and what is class. Okay. Then data abstraction, this is also one characteristics. Data encapsulation is also one characteristics. Inheritance. We are also having the inheritance, one separate chapter, that is the chapter number 10, inheritance. Okay. In that chapter again I will explain in detail. Overloading. Chapter number 8 we are having the overloading, function overloading. Chapter number 8 we are having the function overloading. Then polymorphism, dynamic binding. So, and last one is the message passing. These are some characteristics of OOP. Now I will explain one by one what is object, what is class, what is data abstraction, what is data encapsulation, what is inheritance, what is overloading, what is function polymorphism, what is dynamic binding, and what is message passing. Okay. Then see first one, what is object? An object is a collection of data members and associated member functions. What is object? See, in last year we have written the programs, they are procedure oriented programming language. In that programs we are use the procedure, not object oriented programming concept. We are not using OOP. So this year we are having all the C++ programs with the OOP concept, means every program must have a classes and objects. Every program has a classes and objects. Okay. Then see what is object in that. Object is a collection of data members and associated member functions. So whatever the class is having data members and member functions, that is the remote collection of object. Second point. Objects are basic building blocks for designing the programs. An object may represent a person, place, or table of data. Object is nothing but basic building blocks for designing the program. To design any program, the object it becomes a basic building blocks. The object may be, you can call it is a person, or it is a place, or it is a table. Means it is a unique value, unique name. Object is a unique name. In that program, object is a unique name, and that object is using for building blocks, basic building blocks for designing any program. Each object is identified by a unique name. See, you can use one or more objects in a program, but every object should have a unique name. You can use one or more objects in the program, no problem, but every object must have a unique name. Okay. Then every object must be member of a particular class. Once you create the class, you can create any number of objects, but every object should be created by using its class name only. All the objects should be created using its class name only. While writing the program, I will tell you how to create the classes and how to create the objects. In next chapter only, in chapter number 7 only, class and object is there. In that chapter, we can see how to create the classes and how to create the objects. Every object must be created using its class name. Okay. For example, now see here, apple, orange, mango are the objects of a class fruit. Means fruit is a one class. Fruit is a one class. In that, apple is also one object, orange is also an object, mango is also one object. So apple, orange, mango are the objects of a fruit class. Fruit is a one class. In that class we are having the some objects. Which are those? It may be apple, orange, or mango. Then next, see, this is an example. Student is the object. Student is the object, and name, registration number, course are the member functions, member data. This is the member data. and get data and display are the member functions of that class. See, actually this is one class. This is the one class. That class is define member data and member functions, and also this define the object. The object is a student. This is one example. In second example, again this is one class. In this, teacher is the object. In second example, teacher is the object. In this, which are the member data? Name, subject, course are the member data. And which are the member functions? Get data and display. Get data and display are the two member functions. Name, subject and course are the three member data. And teacher is it's a object, that class object. Okay. So this is about what object. So every program in this year we are going to write using the classes and object. Once class is created, you can create any number of objects, but every object must be created using its a class name only. Okay, this is much you have to keep in your mind. So the question may be asked for you, one word, what is class? You can write simply in one word. So what is object? You can write it simply one word. An object is a collection of member data and associated member functions. Over, you will get the one mark. A object is a associated member functions and member data. This much is over. Then next, class. What is class? Class is a way of grouping objects having similar characteristics. Class is a way of grouping having similar characteristics. Once class is defined, any number of objects that class are created. See, what is class? Class is having similar characteristics of any objects. For example, here you can see function 1, function 2, function n, data 1, data 2, data n. These all are having the similar characteristics. That is called as a class. For example, I will tell you, planet, sun, moon are the members of a class solar system. Solar is a class name. Solar is a class name, and that class is having the planets, sun and moon. Got it? So these planets, sun and moons may be having the similar characteristics. They are having the similar characteristics. A moon or a planet or a sun, these all are having similar characteristics, and its class is a solar system. Class is a solar system. So once you create like this class, after that you can create any number of objects, and after creating objects only you can access this member functions and member data. Function 1, function 2, function n, these are the member functions, and data 1, data 2, data n, these are the member data. You can access member functions as well as member data using the objects only. To access this member functions and member data, we have to create the objects. Okay, so once your class is created, you can access all the member functions and all the member data. So this is second characteristics of OOP concept. Classes is the first, object is the first, class is the second. Okay, and this object and class we can also discuss in detail next chapter, that is chapter number 7, that name only classes and objects. This chapter number 7, name only classes and objects, we can again discuss in detail in next chapter, chapter number 7. Okay, then see, a class can hold both data and functions. Okay, the class can hold both member functions and member data. Next, data abstraction. Data abstraction refers to process of representing essential features without including background details of the or explanation. See, sometimes what will happen, if you want to access any data, we should know its background details or its background explanations. But while using the OOP concept, it is not necessary as for accessing all the data that is available in the class without knowing its background details or without knowing its explanation. We can access the data. That is only data abstraction permits user to use the object without knowing its internal working. How it is internal working? What are its background explanations are there? What are the controls it is having? That all the things if you don't know, then also you can access it with the help of objects. That is the data abstraction. Then see, what is data encapsulation? Data encapsulation combines data and functions into single unit, that is called as a class. So with the help of data encapsulation, we can combine the data and functions into a one single unit. All you seen what is class? Classes hold the member data and member functions. So it is hold member data and member functions both in single unit because of data encapsulation. With the help of data encapsulation only, we can combine this data and functions into single unit. Data encapsulation prevent direct access to data. The data can be accessed only through the methods present inside the class. The data cannot be modified by the external members. One more thing in this chapter it is added. The non-members or external members can't be access our data. Non-members or external data members can't be access our data, or they can't be modified our data. Those who are member function, internal member function, that member functions can edit or access your data. So because of that, we are going to give the security for our data. Okay, data cannot be modified by an external non-member functions of a class. Data encapsulation enables the data hiding and information hiding. So we can hide our data in a program. So because of hiding, external members or non-member functions can't be access our data, or they can't modify our data. This is because of our data security. Okay, if non-members, if external members, if they are editing our data, then there is no security for our data. There is no security for data. They are unable to edit. They are unable to access our information because the data will be encapsulated. The data will be encapsulated in single unit. So those who are our member functions, such members only access the values. Those who are non-member functions, that non-member functions can't be access any information. Okay, that is what security for our data. If anybody can access our information, then that is not secure. That is not secure. See, one thing I will tell you. If we are going to take the classes on Zoom, or if we are going to take any one meeting on Zoom, so meeting will be going on with students and lecturers. Meeting will be going on with the help of, between the students and one lecturer. If third person can enter into that meeting, and if third person can access the information, then it is not secure. And it is not secure. So because of that, the Zoom app will provide the passwords and links also. So that is what purpose? Security purpose. And those who are having the passwords and links, such persons can access that app. Then who are having the passwords? Those who are authorized person, those who are member functions. Non-member functions can't access that information. Even though we are sending you YouTube links, we are sending you YouTube links because you are our students. So you can only access our videos. You can only access our videos. We are not going to give these links to any other person. If we will give any other person, then that person can also access our videos. Okay. If we are not going to give any links for that students, but if that person is accessing our videos, then it is not secure. If any XYZ student, that student is not belongs to our college, but he is accessing our data, then it is not secure. Okay, but in WOOP concept, what will happen? Data encapsulation will prevent the direct access. It will use it will hide some data. Because of that, the non-member functions can't be access this information. The next, inheritance. This is the one easiest chapter. Again, we are having the one separate chapter this year, chapter number 10, that is the inheritance. This means the process of forming a new class from an existing class is known as the inheritance. Forming a new class from existing class is called as a inheritance. So see, already they have given an example here. Superclass, base subclass 1, subclass 2. Superclass is a main class. We accessed some data from superclass and we have created two more classes, that is subclass 1, subclass 2, like that. The object of a one class acquire the properties from another class through inheritance. With the help of inheritance characteristics, we can access the data from one class to another class. Okay. The existing class is known as the base class. The new class is known as the derived class. In OOP concept, inheritance provides idea of code reusability. See, one more thing I will tell you. Accessing properties means what? Suppose you are writing two different programs. You are going to writing two different programs, and in both the programs are having some same code. Both the programs are having some same code. In that case, first you have written the program number 1. In that program already written the code. In program number 2, again you are having same code. In that case, instead of writing again the code, you can just access that code available in the class 1 or program 1. That is called as acquiring code reusability. Whatever the code used in the program number 1, same code we are going to use in the program number 2. Means accessing the code reusability. That is called the code reusability. Same code we are using in program number 1 as well as program number 2. Okay, that is code reusability. The derived class shares some properties of the base class, and therefore the code from the base class can be reused by the derived class. In addition to this, new class may be combined features from the two or different base classes. Okay, the different types of inheritance are there. I will explain in detail in 10 chapter only. Then overloading. Again, you are having the chapter number 8, function overloading. Now see what is overloading. Name itself implies overloading, means more number of. Okay. So different meaning. There are two types of overloading is there. I will explain one by one. First is the operator overloading, and second is the function overloading. First, see what is operator overloading. When an existing operator operates on a new data type, it is called as the operator overloading. Already one operator is there, and that operator operates on the one more new data type. That is called as the operator overloading. And second is the function overloading. Function overloading means what? If you are having two or more functions in same program, if you are going to use two or more functions in same program, in that case you make use the program function name is same. But you have to differ in number of arguments or type of arguments. You have to change the types of arguments or number of arguments. That are called as a function overloading. Okay. So sometimes what will happen, I will tell you. If you are going to find the area of square, area of rectangle. Okay. So in that time you have to give two different functions: area of square, area of rectangle, area of triangle. So in that case you have to give different function names. Instead of giving the different functions, you can use the only one function name, that is common function name, and just use the different types of arguments or different number of arguments. So then what is types of arguments and what is number of arguments? I will explain chapter number 8 only. In that chapter only I will explain in detail. Then next is the polymorphism. Then see what is polymorphism. So polymorphism is the features of object-oriented programming language where the, see in simple words I will tell you, polymorphism. Poly means many, morphism means forms. You can take the multiple forms. Polymorphism means the ability to operate on a operator and functions to take the multiple forms in a same program. It is called polymorphism. Using the polymorphism, it is ability to take the multiple forms at the same time. It can take the multiple forms at the same time. It is called as the polymorphism. Okay, this is also one characteristic of object-oriented programming language. The example, consider addition of operation. In addition, two numbers are results is the sum of two numbers. In addition of two strings, operating is a string is a concatenation, string concatenation. Last we studied also that one, string concatenation. String 1 is the Raja, string 2 is the Rani. When you combine this both, it becomes a Raja Rani. String concatenation means multiple forms. First form is the Raja, second form is the Rani. When you combine this both forms, it becomes a Raja Rani. That is string concatenation. Last we all studied. Okay. Then when operator behaves differently based on the operands, it is said to be operator overloaded. Okay. Similarly, when same function is used for multiple tasks in the same program by changing arguments type and the number of times known as the function overloading. So function name is same, but using different types of arguments, different number of arguments. Then one more, that is the dynamic binding. Then see one more feature of OOP concept, that is dynamic binding. Dynamic binding is the process of connecting one program to another program. Dynamic binding is process of connecting from one program to another program. Dynamic binding means code associated with the procedure call is known only at the time of program execution routine. So whenever it is necessary to connect more than one program, in that case you may use a dynamic binding features. And last one is the message passing. See, in OOP concept, the processing is done by sending the message to the objects. See, already I tell you, whatever the data members or data function available in the class, that can access by the objects only. So whenever data members or that member function have to be accessed, in that time the message passing will be happen. With the help of message passing only, the data can be get accessed. And message for object is request execution procedure. This request will involves the procedure function in the receiving the object that generates a desired result. Message passing involves the specific name object, name of the function, and the information to be sent. So already I told you what are the functions are there, what are the data members there. You have to access it with the help of object, so that whatever transformation is there, that will happens using the message passing. So these are the different characteristics of OOP concept. Okay, we are discussing today classes, objects, polymorphism, inheritance, dynamic binding, overloading, message passing. These are the some different characteristics of OOP concept. So these questions may be asked for you 5 marks. What are the characteristics of OOP concept, or what are the features of OOP concept? Like the question may be asked. So today we have completed 2 concepts. One is the difference between OOP and procedure programming, and second question is the characteristics of object-oriented programming language. In this remains only 3 points: advantages, disadvantages, and applications. That are I will continue in next class only. This is one small chapter. Within 2 days, this chapter will get finished. So today is this much only. In next class, I will continue remaining that 3 concepts are there. Okay. Thank you.